The Adventures of Phil Walter in Antarctica. Where to next? We finished with that one. So we're talking about, what, 9 o'clock now? It's taking about a couple of hours. You haven't had any breakfast yet?
No. I ran quickly between them.
So you sort of...
So I hive off back to my geo hut.
It's got a window, has it?
I don't think it did, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That was a wooden thing that came from Herd Island.
Ah.
So we take them back into my own private darkroom.
Private darkroom where he's got his other pictures.
And then you take the paper out, you run it through 3 dishes.
Yep.
The developer. Then it was, I forgot what to call it, but it was
what is a flush?
Basically water just to clean off all the developer.
Yeah, and then
it went through the fixer. And the fixer was, for those familiar with photography would know, that's what makes the record
the silver nitrate turn into black something. So you stick them up on your thing, on your little thing to... Now, you did say to dry them outside, and I went, what? Dry these films outside? It was frozen to death. I said, you meant hang them up on the inside.
Yes.
And then you can flick on the light.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you just leave them there to dry out.
Yep.
And that take a few hours, and then you can analyse your record.
So it really is a very boring photograph, isn't it? It's just a line.
Well, yes.
You know.
Except for those who are
interested
in the Earth.
And how did you work out the timing of it? Because I'm sitting there going, you look at an earthquake that's happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, how do you measure it? You obviously start with the trace in the beginning, and you just follow it through in a sort of long circle.
In the case of the seismic records, every 10 seconds or something like that, the trace would jump by a couple of millimetres.
Bing!
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the time mark.
Clock.
And that was geared to a clock
that
was calibrated every day against standard time. That came in
Which
from radio.
standard time?
It was Greenwich Mean
Greenwich Mean Time.
Yes.
At the third stroke, it will be 7:47.
And this came from radio pulses.
Yeah, because you can pick those up when you're at sea. Yeah. There's a station you can pick up on shortwave. They just sends us the time.
That would be the station that we use.
Yeah.
Okay. And then every hour you get a slightly larger pulse, and you note the onset time.
Yeah. So you can calculate where.
And then you know that you've got an accurate record of the time at all times. And you got a similar sort of a pulse on the magnetic record, so you knew what time was at any point on.
So how long? Sorry, I forgot. How long are these pieces of paper again?
A bit more than a metre for the seismic. The magnetic ones weren't quite that big.
Okay, so that's taken back, and then obviously when they've developed, you can analyse them. You do analyse them, and you log any anomalies.
The anomalies for the seismic was earthquakes. So you'd measure the onset.
That's the beginning.
Yeah, to within a few milliseconds if it was a nice clear onset.
Yeah.
If some were not quite so clear, and then you'd go for the nearest millisecond, I think.
So it's but it's a detailed log, isn't it? Is it like each one gets its own little this time sample, blah blah blah.
Yeah, so you note down onset time. Now, if you could pick up the second phase, if those were familiar, there's P waves and S waves.
Yeah.
If you could get that or surface wave incidents, you'd note those times down for a particular earthquake as well.
And you could hear the globe, couldn't you? From there, you could hear the world mumbling and grumbling.
You could say that the seismic records were like an ear to the earth.
Yeah, it's like listening. With a stethoscope, you can listen to the earth, and you can hear the earthquake in, say, Japan or something like that.
Yeah. And
obviously, there's a global network of stations to listen to these things.
That's right. And Mawson was a very strategic location. Not only did it pick up nuclear weapons, but it filled a gap in the Earth's network of seismic stations.
Because it's a funny thing, you don't understand what... I mean, Mawson Station's been there for quite a long time, but there was real reason to have it at that specific location. Oh, we'll put it around here.
It was very fortuitous that the best location to be able to get a ship in, called Horseshoe Harbour, right beside the base, also happens to be a very strategic location for all these other reasons. That's what we did. We'd also measure the amplitude, that is the peak of the earthquake, and that went into the records, which all got sent back to Canberra via telegrams.
Oh, because you said that once you've recorded that, you send it. You go up to the Radio Shack, the radio base.
Yes, that's correct.
And the bloke does he? How does he send it?
Morse code.
So he did do Morse code. So he was sitting there really.
Morse code was big back then.
Yeah.
But not actually telegrams. Was it all Morse code? Might have been. I can't.
So this is a whole string of data, a whole page and a half of data for the day that gets sent.
These guys were really good at it.
Yeah, but didn't you say it's a broad network? Everybody gets the signal, so you get it for Canberra specifically. Okay, but it also goes to all the other bases around.
Yes.
The Antarctic.
When I was down there, I'd also add on to it to all the Antarctic bases.
So it's like an email, which is a group email. That's literally how it sounds to me. But everybody's tuned into the frequency.
It occurred to me a lot of people wouldn't care less about that, so I just sent, partway through the year, I sent a message out saying,
just to see
who actually wants these records?
Who's listening?
Interesting enough.
And then the Russians said, we want them very much.
Oh yes, the Russians still wanted them. But then nobody cared in those days. We all shared our records.
Yeah.
For anyone who wanted.
But I think even today that's still that sort of handshake. Yes, we were going to share the information.
Could be right.
But I suppose, would they send it back to you, their data that they've collected, and would you collect that as well?
Yes.
So you'd have a record of yours and anybody else's who's come through?
Yeah. Quite a number of bases also did the same thing.
So sort of, it's actually triangulating the signal as well, so you'd actually have a bit more location.
Well, in the case of seismic records, you're part of a massive triangulation grid.
Okay, so basically, if you finished at the Radio Shack, done that.
You'd also had to note down magnetic storms for the magnetic field.
Yeah.
And how big they were. There's all sorts.
And magnetic storms can be affected by. Do we have magnetic storms on through the planet, like part of the Earth's magnet, or are magnetic storms generated through the solar wind?
It normally comes from the sun.
Right. So that's what causes the disruption.
Yeah.
So by ourselves, we're quite a nice little bubble of magnetic protection, and then when you get these storms coming in to wreak havoc with the magnetic field.
If you get a severe one, they can create a lot of havoc.
Yeah, because it takes your satellites out and all sorts of things like that.
Exactly. There was another factor with the magnetic work.
Yeah.
Remember, I called it a variometer hut.
Yep.
That
that's
just
one on the
measures
ground.
variations.
Yep.
Now, you also had to know, well, what is the actual value of the field? So once a week, I would go to what we call the absolute hut. This is a little hut, very lonely, way out just at the base of the plateau, specifically designed to have nothing magnetic within it. So it was quite...
So that's a thing where you're talking about specifically made. They had to, did they build it in Australia in kit form, ship it, and then transport it to these locations?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That was another one that was actually on Heard Island and brought over.
Never heard of again, yes?
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, it had to have, even more important than variometer hut, which was supposed to be non-magnetic, this one had to be absolutely non-magnetic. And there you had a number of instruments, 3 instruments, and they were just like the variometers, using the same sort of technique.
Light refracting or reflecting.
Yeah, and on hanging off quartz fibres or balancing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we had a surveyed peg that I could use looking through a little hole in the wall outside, and I had a theodolite marked up, aligned with that, so I could always get true magnetic north.
True magnetic, not magnet. Yeah. Okay. So that's a little hole and a little peg that's pointing north.
If you pointed to that particular marker, you knew exactly what the angle was to true north by pointing at that marker. Now down there, most parts of the world, you're only talking a few degrees declination, but when you're down in the Antarctic, at Mawson, it was, I think back then, 68.5 degrees or something, 68.8.
Yeah, you might have checked that in the subtitles for later, but that's quite mixed.
Anyway, it's large.
Oh, sorry, it's in the pages. Yeah, I can pull up because we're actually doing a podcast, so we can actually just check it. There we are. Sorry, that's for the non-viewers.
62.
62. Well, that's a
62.8 degrees. Is the declination.
So that's true north, and 62 degrees that way is the declination of the magnetic north now.
Yeah, so magnetic north is 62.8 degrees off true north.
So one of the things to think about is what is it now in 2022? That'd be kind of interesting. It's either gone further down or it's come back up again.
Whatever it is, it's large down there.
Because that's why it's obviously easier to measure because it's so much.
I believe we talked about this in our Gaussberg.
Yes, because that was the very interesting.
Yeah.
You created that what do you call it?
Bit of history.
Bit of history, but you collected it and then you added to it.
Oh, yes.
All right. So this is you trotting around in the morning, doing all your measurements and everything else. What happens when it gets a bit difficult to get out, like it's a blizzard, and your machine wants to be changed?
Yes.
It's like a child. It's nappy. It's full. It needs to be changed every day.
That's an analogy I hadn't thought of.
Because if it's 24/7, 7 days a week, it gets a bit tedious after a while.
Yes, it can do. And every day, blizzard, rain, hail. No, there's no rain.
Well, that's right. That's
no
hail. Rain, hail, or
but there was blizzard. I went out and I changed those records.
Yeah.
Then came a day, I woke up in the morning and the wind was just about shaking everything to bits.
So it really is a shake, isn't it? And you've got guy wires on your accommodation too, so they'll start to vibrate and hum.
Yeah, well, you had wires humming. The guy wires could pick up quite a din.
Not the girl wires, just the guy wires.
Just the guy wires.
Yep.
So we had down there then.
Yep.
And I listened to this and I thought, should I go out there? Being an idiot.
Oh, that's right, and indestructible.
And indestructible.
Yeah, I'm a young man, I could do this.
I'm going out to change those records.
Okay, so you're heading down to the
Geo hut.
The Geo hut, which is down from the base. Yep.
Yeah.
A little bit. How far?
Oh, it only take 1.5 minute or
But
two.
you're running.
Yeah.
But you run normally.
Normally run. I managed to get down there and I thought, oh, this is so rough.
Now there's a defined pathway. There's a pathway, isn't it? There's a well-worn pathway.
Yeah, well-worn.
And did you say that there's even ropes on those pathways just to make sure you get there in time?
We had blizzlines.
Blizzard lines called blizzlines, yep.
Yes.
And these are thick
hemp ropes.
Hemp.
Yeah.
No,
hemp.
The smoking. No, not that one.
No. They were tied to poles that were anchored firmly and they were, I don't know, about 1 metre high.
Oh, so you could hold on it with your hand?
That you could hold on if the wind was so strong you couldn't stand.
Yeah. You don't attach a hook? Like a safety harness hook?
No. Your safety hook was your hands.
Okay.
With gloves on.
Right. Not that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I got down there all right.
So let's sort of talk a time. A day. It was middle of the winter period. Woke up in the morning. It was blowing a blizzard, not a gale.
Not
a blizzard.
Gale.
What do you put under your arm?
The canister.
Oh, right. So you got your three canister with 9.
Yeah, but this time I tucked it under
your thing.
my ventiles, as we call it, which is a windproof outer layer of all the clothes you have.
How many layers would you have had? Because I know that it's all about layers.
Yeah, I don't know, 4 or 5 or something.
Okay.
Yeah. Out I went.
Now, do you go through an airlock? Not an airlock, but an anteroom.
Yeah.
So you've got your room open up, close, and then you go outside.
Yes.
So you don't get the wind blasted.
The wind blasts into the anteroom only. You can clear the snow out later. Out I went, and I didn't get very far. I thought, I think I've made a mistake here.
Yeah.
I'm dragging myself along the bliss line. I said, I've got to get out to the variometer hut. Now, I was going blind.
Yeah.
Because this wind was so severe, my goggles would fill up within seconds.
Now, I don't get that. Goggles to me sit flush to your face, and
normally
snow's
they work
inside
fine.
it.
But in this blizzard, they didn't work.
But the snow is very fine there too, isn't it? It's like
Very fine,
like a sand.
dust. Yeah.
Yeah.
And very dry. And normally those snow goggles work, but in this blizzard was something else.
So you're going blind. You're holding onto the piece of rope.
Yeah. Took a few wrong turns because you might branch off onto the wrong blizz line.
Ah, there you go. It's not one down to that. That goes off somewhere else. Okay.
Eventually I found the seismic hat, changed the records, and thought, now I've got to get to the variometer. Dragged myself along the blizz lines, a few more detours where I took the wrong one because I was blind. Finally got there, changed the records. Now coming back...
Now we're talking serious wind here, aren't we?
That's a serious wind,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We're talking 100 knot.
100 knots. So we could put a little variation on the bottom of the screen to say knots to kilometres. So it's about 180 kilometres, maybe 200 kilometres.
Something like that.
Yeah. And it's gusting or is it constant?
It was constant blast with the occasional blast extra.
Yeah.
So again, running blind.
Just following it around.
Following the blizz line. Finally found the right one.
So you've been out for how long now? You've been down there doing your thing? Because once you're inside, it's you can work.
Yeah, you're right there.
And then you're out and go, oh my God, what am I going to do next? And you start trying to find your way across.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find my way back to base.
After you've been to the magnetic,
Yeah, the magnetic hut, which is a long way out of it.
Yeah, that's what somebody said. It was a while.
Yeah, it'd take about 5 minutes jog normally.
Yeah, so it took you half an hour then.
Yeah, I think I'd been out about an hour or maybe
So
more.
at what point do you think this is not a good idea, Phil?
When I couldn't find my way back to base, I really thought I did the wrong thing here.
This is after you've done all your checks. So you checked.
I've done all my job.
So now you're trying to get home.
I'm trying to get back. Yeah, and I couldn't.
And you go. You just kept following. You still had the biz line.
I had a Blizz line, and
then
you come to a junction of two Blizz lines. Now, which one do I go?
Yeah, because that's an interesting thing. You would think of how they would have. You would have thought they would have thought about that.
I don't know if they thought about blizzards so strong that you couldn't see.
Yeah.
You certainly couldn't stand without holding onto it. There's no way you could stand or move.
Well, I think you said you literally get blown off them sometimes. That's what I thought. You've had a hook on it. Your hands, you start to get pretty tired after a while.
You do, very much so. But we're getting to that.
Okay, so we're heading back to the main.
The main base.
Yeah.
The main base.
Yeah.
Eventually, I stumbled onto a hut. I thought, I don't know where I am, but I'm going inside this hut.
How long would one of these blizzards last? Because you sort of sit there going, in your head going, this has been 3 hours. Okay, we might be blown out by.
They could last anything from a few hours to a few days.
Okay, so did anybody tell you? There was now an alert that goes out around the base from the meteorological people.
We didn't have forecasters that year.
I thought you said the forecaster was just useless. Every time
he wasn't a forecaster except in his own mind.
Because he said, it's going to be a lovely day today and it's a blizzard.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a blizzard blowing. Our warning was when we heard the buildings rumbling like mad.
Yeah.
Heading into this building, whatever it was, and it turned out to be the meteorological hut.
Oh, really? Who was supposed to have told you about the blizzard in the first place?
That's the one.
Okay.
And inside that hut
was
the head of the meteorological department.
Shivering under the chair?
Yeah. By the name of John Squibb. He'd made it up there, and he was just looking at the instruments in fascination.
Yeah.
Because the anemometer was going crazy.
So the anemometer
measures wind.
That's that round thing that goes round and round like a lunatic. Yep.
Somehow it was still going even in these wild gusts.
Yep.
The barometer
Yep.
was just dropping like a stone.
Yep.
And we were watching it. You could
so that's a low pressure system, isn't it, coming over? As it coming over, the pressure drops.
That's right.
Yep.
And when I got in there, the pressure was still dropping, and you could actually watch that thing drop.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were staring at all this for quite some time. Because we couldn't do anything, we weren't going to leave the hut.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, the air pressure levelled off.
Okay.
Very low, but
that's the barometer.
Off. Yes, the barometer.
Yes.
Squibby says,
Whoopee!
That's the worst of it past. It should
okay.
It should be all right now to go back to base.
So it's dropped down so low.
He was quite sure it was fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So I said, okay, you go first. I'll give you a head start, and then I'll come after you. So we did that. He rugged up and off he went. Gave him a couple of minutes head start so we didn't bump into each other. And then off I went. Now I must...
How far is meteorological from the main base?
Normally it would probably take you a few minutes to get
walk,
there.
To run?
To run.
Yeah, okay. It's just security.
So it's not far away.
I know, but it sounds like, why did you go together?
Base.
Yeah, anyway.
We didn't go together because we'd both be blind and we don't want to bump into each other on a blizzard line.
That was a funny noise.
Blind.
Yeah, okay.
So,
yeah,
I head off. And it's this storm is picking up. And
so it starts to increase again, doesn't it?
It felt like it.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, I'm going along and this almighty gust hit me, slammed me into the rope. The rope snapped.
Now you said this rope's pretty darn thick, isn't it?
Very thick.
It's like an inch thick. Maybe an inch, maybe 2 inches thick. 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
Snapped.
Snapped.
Well, you said because it's hemp rope. It's hemp rope. It's not that strong.
Hemp is strong.
It's not as strong as nylon.
If you say so.
Well,
but at least you could grip it easily.
Yeah,
and that's important. I grabbed hold of one end. I went swinging out in an arc with the wind. Yeah. And that was only the next pole along that was keeping me anchored, and I pulled myself back to that pole.
Yeah.
I was lucky that the end that I grabbed was the end that led back to base.
Now the pole's about a metre up. They're pegged in quite hard.
Very
so
hard.
the strings across the ropes across the top.
Yeah.
it
This one
snapped, and
sent
you were
me flying out.
So there's how spaced apart are they? Would be a
I don't know.
couple of meters.
Yeah, I don't know, 5 meters or whatever.
So you got caught in the middle of one. You were holding onto the right edge. You were flapping around in the breeze.
Swinging right out.
Swinging around. Pull yourself up like you've fallen off a boat.
Yeah.
In the wind.
Yeah.
You grabbed onto the pole in the middle.
Yeah.
And kept following it, and it went home.
Took me to base.
The other one would have gone
back to the Met Hut.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I didn't.
In all this time, you can't see what you're doing.
That's right.
You can't hear anything because the noise is just insane.
You could hear only the noise that was insane.
And it just, you can barely breathe, isn't it? Didn't you say that you had to literally turn away from the wind to breathe?
Well,
because it just, it takes the blows.
Yes, well, you had balaclava on that was iced right up, so yeah, that could create a bit of difficulty too.
So it's a strenuous arm over arm walking, slightly walking.
That's exactly what it was.
And then you walked and you staggered back into base and going.
Yes. Now that Blizz line took me to the entrance to the dining rooms, and also alongside it was a rec room.
Yeah.
So I got in there were some people in the dining room. Oh, I asked, "Where's Squibby?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't know." I said, "He should be back here." And they said, "No, it's not here." I went up. It was all covered to get to the rec room. Went up there. He's nowhere around. I said, "He's missing." So he should have been here.
So is that like a red button thing? Alert. We keep an eye. We radio around all the little zones.
Well, we had a phone network around the place, so we rang up every single place that had a phone.
Yeah. Have you
no
seen
sign
him?
of Squibby. He'd gone. Now there was absolutely no point in going out and searching for him.
Yeah.
It put us in danger, and he still wouldn't have found him, most likely.
I mean, that's the scary thing. You know somebody's out there. You know what the conditions are like. And you can't do anything because it's going to endanger everybody else.
Now it gets worse because Mawson Base is right by the shore, the seashore.
Yeah.
If he got caught in the wind, he could bounce along, be blown over the rocks, onto the sea ice, and then when you're on the sea ice, there's no coming back until that blizzard is over. Because there's no traction.
Yeah.
He just would have been blown out. And
so the wind was coming from south to...
It's coming roughly from the south towards the north.
Off the continent. You're literally blown off the continent.
Yes, onto the ice. Sea ice.
Yeah.
So there's nothing we could do.
And nobody has like a personal flares to
Not in that case.
Yeah.
I mean, when you set out to do those things, you don't imagine such danger. Squibby was missing.
Squibby is Squibby's missing. Yeah. Meteorological guy. Who should have known better?
Well,
he was missing.
He was missing. We'd phoned all around the base.
Yep.
There was no sign of him. There was nothing we could do.
Yep. Storm stopped.
I had to wait for the storm to die down, not stop.
Yeah. Because the most extreme example is, as you said, the wind's coming from the south to the north. It could have blown him off the continent, didn't it? It could have done.
It could have done.
Yeah.
As I said, he was blown off. The force of the wind blew him off the Blizz line.
Yeah.
And he'd vanished.
Yeah. So that's a pretty shocking thing to go around the base. All of a sudden you realise, hey, this is for real. We might have lost somebody. He might be dead. Or stuck somewhere.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that was entirely possible.
Because it's a small community. Yeah. We know Squibby. He's got 8 arms.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, there would have just been mass shock.
Yeah. Because you did say that people have died on the at the base before.
People have died down at Mawson. That year there was 3 graves out on West Arm, which was one of the edges of Horseshoe Harbour.
Yeah.
I understand there's more since then. Yeah, that's a whole other subject.
Yeah, so it's a real thing.
It's a very real thing.
Okay, so this storm it's lasted how long? How long is it?
It had been going, it would have started sometime during the night before. And it's been going for quite a few hours.
Yeah.
At the time, as it proved later, at the time when Squibby and I left the meteorological hut, that was when the worst of the storm hit.
I think you said in other episodes, the meteorological guys literally, if they say it's going to be clear, it's not going to be clear. It's going to be absolutely grey and horrible.
Now the anemometer registered somewhere between 110 and 115 knots.
So that
right
is
at that
damn
point,
far. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the real pace would have been even more. The anemometers smooth things out just a little bit.
Yeah.
So you could have got gusts that were even more powerful.
I mean, it was enough to snap rope,
Yeah.
throw you off, literally, a human thrown around like a
And
leaf.
Squibby was literally blown off. His cable didn't snap, his blizz line, but he was still blown off.
Yeah. So you're waiting in the recreation room, going, oh my god, and listening to the weather to get a point where you can go, okay, we can go out and look.
Yeah, we hadn't got to that point when Squibby appeared.
I suppose you could feel the
There's a lot
the sigh of relief.
There's a lot of tension left with me, I can tell you.
Did he sort of stagger in and go, and fall on the floor? Squibby! Squibby!
He didn't fall on the floor.
Oh,
Neither
okay.
did I.
Okay.
But I said, what happened to you? He said, just after I left, big gust hit me and blew me right off the line. I lost my grip.
Just completely blew him away. So he'd be
Blew him
tumbling
away.
around like a...
Well, something like that.
Yeah.
He was bouncing along the rocks,
Yeah.
heading towards the sea ice.
Which he couldn't have seen anyway. He was just blowing... He was just in a sort of
He wouldn't have known where he
white-out
was
environment,
going,
just rolling like a...
with no control over
Yeah.
where he was going. If he got to the sea ice, it could have been curtains for him.
Yeah.
Because there's no grip. He would have been blown out to sea, and he would have been stuck out there
Yeah.
until that storm had died down a lot.
Yeah.
And
Which could have been hours or days even.
yes, and he might not. There's a fair chance he might not have survived that.
Yeah.
As it turned out, he bumped into a building, and it was. Remember I mentioned before the cat house.
Oh.
He bumped into the cat house, the emergency power building.
Right.
He managed to drag himself inside, and there he had to wait out the storm.
So was he injured? He must have been injured.
He probably had a few bruises and whatnot. I can't remember. Main thing is he did survive.
Yeah.
So that was the story of the big blizzard, myself
1975.
and Squibby.
Yeah. But like I said before, did you have a debrief and say, hey, what went wrong?
Short answer, no.
Okay. So you just literally roll with this. You nearly lost somebody. I mean, really, it's quite serious. Yeah.
What we did do, we went out and we tended all, later on, we made big maintenance job on the blizz lines, making sure that...
So were the ropes deteriorated then? There must be
there
something wrong.
There were places where the ropes had deteriorated, they'd worn through.
Yeah.
So all of that had to be replaced.
Yeah.
And some come off the poles and they were just straight along the ground, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
They were all fixed up. Yeah.
All right. I think we've had an exciting episode. I know it's been a bit interesting at the beginning because, we're dealing with technology and technical
things. You mean
things.
uninteresting?
Oh, no, I find it very interesting.
Oh,
obviously,
good.
the viewers or the audio people may think it's boring as anything. But anyway, thank you so much, Phil Walter. And end of chapter 5 of our great adventure in Antarctica.
Thank you very much, Pete.
Okay, and...
Cut.